Making sure tripod is locked down is definitely behooving. What's up, guys? Welcome to a new lens episode. So right here, the lens that you can't see is the new 24mm f1.8. Very excited. I've had this lens on pre-order since it was available to be pre-ordered, and it got here this afternoon. So of course, the first thing I wanted to do with it was Astro. So let's just jump right into it. We've had so many monsoons lately. I'm so lucky that we have. Oh, what, did I just take a shot? Oh no, I didn't. I'm so lucky that we have like one clear night. Surprisingly, there's a cloud that just moved right over. Wow. Of course, there is one pesky cloud going right over the Milky Way. All right, let's try to get these and wrap it up because I got low battery, clouds, and mosquitoes, and that does not make for a good night. So first shot, right out the gate, I'm gonna do wide open, and then we're gonna step it up in increments to see how the coma looks. The cloud might be obscuring some of the stars in the corners for the coma, but we're wide open, f1.8, 20 seconds, ISO 2000. I'm on my R6. Instead of the R5 because the R6 is better for Astro. And so now we're just going to step it up. I'm going to skip F2 and I'm going to go straight to F2.8 because 2.8 is still really good. And then I'm going to bump my ISO up a little bit just to compensate for that. So now we're at ISO 3200, 20 seconds, F2.8. And that's our jam right now. I'm not too worried about what the ISO is going to do because this will handle it just fine, and noise reduction and editing and all that. But mostly what I'm looking for is image quality and coma in the corners. I want to see how it does with coma wide open and if it goes away and when it goes away. So there's 2.8, 3200. So now we're going to step it up to F4. And I'm going to have to go another stop up. So now we're going to 6400 and we're at 20 seconds. So let's take a look at that. Beautiful clouds covering the Milky Way. We do have stars on the edges though, so that'll give me I'm seeing some vignetting too. But that's to be expected. I don't expect this to be like the most amazing Astro lens ever created. Aside from it looking like it's the exact same barrel and like body and housing as a 35, it seems to be pretty similar quality glass and all that. So I have high hopes. We're just going to see how this vignetting does and how the coma does and when it changes, if it changes. So I'm going to grab the rest of these shots and then let's go get out of this mosquito infested desert, which is a weird thing to say, but there's just been so much rain. So let's get out of this mosquito-infested desert, grab the shots we need, and I'll see you back in the studio in a second. All right, we've got T, check. We've got images, check. We've got a new lens. So we're in the studio now, obviously, and I'm actually filming with the 24. So first time filming with it. This is definitely the main reason why I bought it. So that I can film with it in the studio and that so Camera Lady can use it to film all the beautiful goods out and about. But let's see, I haven't looked at the images at all yet, so I wanted you guys to see a first look with me. Let's jump in the computer and see what they look like, if there's any major problems, and then maybe I'll do a little bit of editing to see if I can get a usable image out of last night's very interesting adventure for reasons that were not on camera. Mostly involving a herd of very curious elk that showed up next to me. So right off the bat, I can already, even just from the image thumbnail, I can see coma and some vignetting. And again, that was to be expected, but let's just see how bad it is. Also, let's see if I actually got focus or not. So I think what you're seeing here is the star trails, and that's indicative of the shutter speed being a little bit too long. So I really probably should have used a 15-second shutter speed. So we're going to ignore that for scientific purposes. Luckily, that does not really have anything to do with the image quality. So this is at 100%, and other than the minor star trail issue, we can see there's the Lagoon Nebula and the Trifid Nebula, which I shot with the 70-200 and the 800. You should check those videos out if you like astro stuff. So we've got Dark Horse there, and we got Pipe Nebula. Let's take a look at the coma. So that's pretty bad. I have seen worse though, but that is pretty bad. Another thing that I'm looking for is chromatic aberration. And you know what? It's not bad. So the chromatic aberration, there's some on the very brighter stars. That's at 100%. So, I mean, it's there, it's noticeable on the bright stars. Let's see how easy of a fix that is if we can. So, interestingly, it's already by default selected, but the default doesn't do very good with strong stuff like that. So just bringing up this purple amount, look at that. Just pulls it right out. And bam, no more chromatic aberration. Mostly I'm seeing the purple. I'm not seeing any green. There's a little red. And you're never going to get a lens that's perfect with the stars just by nature of physics. With chromatic aberration and coma and all that stuff. But I will say that this coma is definitely noticeable and kind of bad. So, you know, I would crop these images, and I would shoot with the intention of knowing, now looking how bad these are, I would shoot with the intention of cropping that out. And, you know, I do that with a lot of lenses too. Let's go to one of the ones with a 2.8, shall we? This is where you can see the clouds started rolling in. Okay, here we go. So here's one at 2.8. So this is a step and 1/3 of a full 1 1/3 stop above 1.8. So f2 would have been 1 stop below 2.8. So you can see we still have that motion blur, and that's definitely reaffirming my poor choice of shutter speed. I did not pay too much attention to that, but again, we're just not going to worry about that. This is what we want. So you can see a dramatic reduction in coma. And also, there is still a little bit of chromatic aberration in there, but again, just a little slider and it's all gone. So the coma is reduced quite a bit, but it is still stretched, and that's to be expected. We can also see less of a vignetting there. So that's at 2.8. All right, so let's check out an f4 shot. Okay, so here's an f4. And again, motion blur. But look at that business. The coma has completely changed and it's gone. Like, that is all just this. The stretching of those stars, that's all just my shutter speed error. But the coma is gone by f4. So that is really cool. And I mean, it's also to be expected. Most lenses that have bad coma that I've dealt with, including the 35 and the 16 millimeter, there's a drastic reduction in coma if you stop it down. Of course, then you're losing one of the benefits of that you don't want to shoot with this lens for is because it's so fast at 1.8. But I think the 2.8 was usable, and I think this overall looks pretty decent. So let's see how they look for vertical orientation. All right, so we're looking at the 1.8 in the top left corner, and that coma is horrible. And then here's 2.8, and then here's f4. So at 2.8, this is what I kind of want to look at, because I think 2.8 is still fast enough for decent astro. Obviously 1.8 is better, but you know, for me personally, 2.8 is a good compromise, because the coma there I can live with. I can just crop out maybe just a very smidge, you know, the 10% of the corners there, 5% or something. But overall, we're also losing a little bit of the vignette. So you can see the vignette there, and then there's the 2.8. And then there's the f4. And there on the 2.8, we can see that the vignetting has been drastically reduced compared to the 1.8. All right, so I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to edit a couple of these images. And what I'm going to do, like the mind frame that I'm going to go with here, is that I'm going to edit a 1.8, one that I shot wide open, how I would edit it to get the most out of it. So cropping in to get rid of the coma, cleaning up whatever, and then making it look as good as possible, because I mean that's what we do as photographers. I don't want to put out a raw image or a bad looking image, so I'm going to try just to make one of those 1.8s look as good as I can. Do the same thing with a 2.8 and the same thing with an f4, and maybe cropped, maybe not cropped for those, but whatever I end up doing, you'll see. So let's see the results and see if I can get what I think is a usable image for me out of shooting it wide open, 2.8 and at f4. Okay, so I had my preliminary edit, and just keep in mind again, you know, these aren't award-winning images, they're just test purposes. But all that withstanding, basically what I'm trying to say is, like, I just wanted to show you guys a look at how I would use the lens, and how I think a lot of other astrophotographers for beginning to intermediate levels of astrophotography would use this lens. I didn't put it on a tracker or anything like that, which I might try later, especially when we get more cloudless nights. I might try throwing it on my tracker and doing some stacking and stuff, and seeing what I can really get out of this lens with some long exposure and stacking and stuff like that. But all that aside, I think that I was able to get some what I would consider usable images, at least for me and for my social media and for YouTube and stuff like that. So the compositions are a little different and the editing is a little different for each, but looking at the three, I think I don't like the 2.8 as much in terms of an image overall. I like the f4 a little more, and I actually like the f1.8, just mostly I think due to the composition, the editing, and the lack of clouds. I think all three of those kind of make me, if I were to have to post one of these three, you know, for Instagram or social media or something, I would want that to be the one that was wide open. I think that's the one that ended up looking the best. But that's not because of the technical issues is what we're talking about, you know, what we're looking at today. Definitely the 1.8 had the most technical issues, with the biggest offending coma and chromatic aberration. And I think, like I said before, and after editing, I still agree with this. I think that the 2.8 was kind of the sweet spot for that lens. So it's nice that, yeah, you're losing a little bit if you don't want to shoot wide open, but if you want to get more out of it, and you don't want to shoot at f4, you know, and save some of that ISO, then it's definitely worth it for me to just stop it down to 2.8 and get rid of most of the chromatic aberration and coma and vignetting, and then deal with what's left, you know, in post and clean it up. And I think for me, that's going to be a nice middle ground for shooting astro with this lens. So hopefully that was at least enough to give you guys a first look or initial insight to if this lens is going to work for you. Your standards may be different than mine, higher or lower. But this is what I was able to do with it in the first night. And I'm pretty happy with the price point, you know, stepping up into a better quality 24mm. For starters, Canon doesn't even have one yet in terms of 1.8 or faster. And the old one, the EF one, is pretty long in the tooth. But as far as the RF goes, you're looking at the 2470, which is an amazing lens. And I don't have it yet. I want it. But it's also, you know, 3-4 something times the price. I mean, it's ridiculous. So keeping in mind the price point, I think it's pretty incredible what you get, and I'm looking forward to using this lens, especially for filming, but also for landscape and maybe even some wide portraits and stuff like that when the 35 isn't wide enough. Overall, I'm pretty stoked to have this in the bag, especially if I want to do some hiking or something like that. I would rather take this than my RF16. The 2.8, even though that lens is much lighter, I much prefer having the actual switch of the manual and autofocus and the image stabilization. I really enjoy those features, and it's heavier than the 16, but nowhere near as heavy as any of my L series lenses that are back there that are ginormous. So I'm really looking forward to using this on, you know, longer hikes, and this is going to be Camera Lady's primary filming lens from now on, filming the YouTube videos for me. But I'm going to wrap it up here. That's a lot of rambling. So if you guys have any questions about anything concerning what little I've seen with this lens so far, then let me know in the comments below and I'll definitely answer them. If you're interested in more of a comparison video, maybe let me know if I have enough interest in that. Maybe I'll see what I can do about getting out there at night for 16 versus 24 versus 35mm. All of those I think would be good contenders for each other for comparison. But other than that, if you're still here and you made it this far, I super appreciate it. And hit that like button for me, because that's the best thing you can do for the channel. And if you want to support even more, then check out the channel memberships down below. You can join, and there's a lot of extra content, and that goes a long way for helping me out, and I super appreciate it. So that's it. I will see you next time out in the field filming with the 24 somewhere awesome. Thanks for watching.